Here now is Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells with Talk to Tom. Sponsored by Greenway Dodge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk to Tom. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells. This show you're about to watch is part of a series that is a dream come true for me. It all started back in 2004 with Talk to Tom live on hurricane coverage. And now it's built into a big Facebook show, and from Facebook show to a real show on your TV every Thursday at 5:30 and always on News 6 Plus. We will be speaking today with a solar expert on about how you can take advantage of the sun's energy even in the middle of winter. But first, I want to get to some of your questions, and we have had some interesting ones delivered. So if you would like to have one of your questions answered, just go to clickorlando.com/talk to Tom, and we'll get you right on. Let's see this. Our first question comes from someone named Ken Moss. He wants to know, in the study of tsunamis, is that part of the meteorological curriculum? He says he's been watching a series called Remembering 311 that covers tsunamis and wanted to know if it's something I've learned about. Okay, Ken, I did take geology as part of my science curriculum at Western Kentucky University, and so we studied about tsunamis a little, and it's one of those things that I've done continuing education on. But as far as it being a day-to-day thing that I worry about, it's not so much. Every now and then we'll have an earthquake. Like we just had it was back in 2010. We had the earthquake in Haiti, and with all the activity in the Caribbean, the big earthquakes, there's always a tsunami threat. People don't think about it much here in Florida. You think of it mostly being a big Pacific, Hawaii, Japan, or perhaps maybe Washington State or California threat. But it is also a small threat here in Florida. So you have to be tsunami ready. In my 22 plus years here, we've only had a tsunami watch, I think once, and nothing ever became of it. That was canceled. The weather service pulled it down. But yes, tsunamis are part of what we learn, even though it doesn't really affect weather. Chances are, if you lead a normal life, you work every day, you go to school and do what you do, one of the few scientists you'll ever meet is A, your doctor, and B, your TV meteorologist. And so since we know that science is not delivered to you by like everyone you meet, we try to be well-rounded and become a station scientist, so to speak. So yes, we've studied a lot about tsunamis. Okay, next question. Our friend Joyce Wood wants to know, how cold do you think it will get in the so-called winter? She's just moved here. She is from Nashville, Tennessee. Well, Joyce, first of all, welcome to paradise. Life is better under the palm. Very few places in the world better than Nashville, Tennessee for my money. You see, Joyce, I don't make fun of the winter here, being a so-called winter, because I was born and raised right there in Nashville. And I know that your winters, I know them well. I was alive for some of those hard winters in the 70s. I was alive through the 80s. I worked in South Carolina in the late 80s for the snow on Myrtle Beach on Christmas Day. All that stuff. So our winter here can vary, Joyce. So if you're trying to compare our winter here to what you went through back in Nashville when you have pretty good winters, well, no, it's not going to be the same thing. But if you compare your winter in Nashville to the winter in Detroit, then people in Detroit look at a Nashville winter and call that a so-called winter. So just know you will get cold, and the longer you live here, your blood does not thin, but your ability to handle the cold will go away. You get weaker. When I moved here, I was strong like bull, and I could sit outside with just a shirt on. And now if it gets below 50, I'm cold. So yeah, there you go. The so-called winter will be a little warmer than normal, but you will get cold next winter. All right, now joining us on Talk to Tom is our special guest, Michael Phillips from Philadelphia. Now, full disclosure, I know Michael, but I don't. Michael is one of those people who has joined the Facebook edition of Talk to Tom for years. He's been hanging out for years, making comments, talking about the weather, talking about sports, antagonizing the other Talk to Tomers. We got to come up with a name for the people who follow Talk to Tom. My peeps. But anyway, welcome to the real on-air Talk to Tom. Michael, the first time we've ever spoken.
Tom, it's an honor to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, I'm glad you're here. Now, Michael's one of those people, like a lot of people from the North, who want to live in Florida. So are you coming down soon, Michael? I know you've been back and forth. Are you here now?
Over in Florida, believe it or not.
You're here in Florida now. Where are you?
Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm at the Cabana Bay Beach over at the university.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right, well, let's get to it. We've already been talking for a minute and a half. You're bound to have questions. What's on your mind today, Michael? Welcome to Talk to Tom.
All right, Tom, here's my question for you. I want to know what stadium in baseball that you've never been to that you would go see a game at. So it could be anything from the 80s on. The reason why I asked that question is I went to Yankee Stadium back in 2007 and bought myself a 5-game ticket plan. It was the house where Babe Ruth played. So I want to know what stadium and what teams do you want to see on the field. You can either create those teams or they could be teams throughout the history of baseball. From the 80s on.
Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot to unpack. Okay, I would say stadiums that I have not been to, and there are many. I'm not one of those people who has knocked out all the stadiums. I've done almost all of the SEC football stadiums, except for Baton Rouge. But I've done a lot of sports stuff. So I would go to Yankee Stadium. And if you're talking historical, way back, well then, yeah, I would like to see Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb and that era playing. But I would love to see a game at Yankee Stadium with the Yankees playing one of their rivals, one of the big American League teams, or my beloved Braves. That's, my favorite team of all time. So I'd like to see the Tigers. I have two teams, for those of you who don't know. I'm a diehard, or grew up, a Braves fan. Then I settled in Detroit City for about 5 years. And so my AL team, the Tigers. So I'd like to see the Tigers play the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, and I'd like to take in a game at Dodger Stadium sometime. I've never done that either. What about you? Besides Yankee Stadium, where would you go?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been at Fed Stadium. I worked there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then I worked at Citizens Bank Park in Philly. So the stadium that I would go to if I had to pick one, I would say the old Candlestick Park. Why not?
Yeah,
in San Francisco.
Yeah, that would have been great. Yeah. I've never done a game in San Fran either.
I've never been to the West Coast in my whole life, Tom. I'm a
really?
unique guy. I stay on the East Coast. That's it. That's the only place I've been is the East Coast of America.
Dude, you got to get out more.
I know.
Yeah,
I love Florida. I spent a lot of time. This is my official vacation spot right here in Orlando. Yep.
Okay, well, you got to make it your official I live here state, because I will tell you, like I tell everyone, life is better under the palm.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, I love it down here, and there's so much to do. And the weather, by the way, hey, thanks for the great weather today. I loved it. I was out by the pool earlier, and It was phenomenal weather.
Okay, it's going to be that way for a long time. We do get cool in the wintertime. Go ahead.
One ride I will never ride is the Pukey Pukey, by the way. All week I've loved it, by the way. Watching the forecast every night, and you've been mentioning that Pukey Pukey every night. I've been getting a kick out of it.
For those of you who don't know what he means, we're talking about the Daytona Beach Cam. And right there is a thing called the Vomitron in the ejector seat. And we call it the Vomitron because that's what they named it. That's what it's called. But when I see it, I'm like, woo, that could get pukey in a hurry. Don't ride that. I'm not riding that. They do great. They do gangbusters. So me making fun of it does not hurt their business. All right. That is my man, Michael from Philadelphia. All right. Thank you for your time, Michael. We'll get back to you soon, I hope. And thank you for your questions. If you have another question you'd like to have answered here on Talk to Tom, just go to clickorlando.com/Talk to Tom to get in on the conversation. And of course, stick around as we talk about how you can take advantage of solar energy, even in the middle of winter. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talk to Tom. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells. Early in the show, we were taking viewer questions. And remember, if you would like to be on the show, just submit your questions to clickorlando.com/Talk to Tom. I'd love to answer any question you may have, and anything is fair game, from how much money you make to who cut your hair. Actually not. I'd rather it be more pertinent. Kind of like what we're going to do now. This is big, important stuff, and one of my favorite topics. We are going to talk about solar energy. Please welcome to the show right now our new friend, Eric Larson from Princeton. He is playing a leading role in the Zero America Project. Eric, welcome to Talk to Tom.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we want to talk about solar energy. It's what you do. And I do not have solar power at my house. All I've ever had were the solar panels that would heat the pool. So give us a primer, just an overview of how does solar work?
Okay, so if you had panels on your house, the sun would shine on them, cause an electrical reaction within the panels because of the way they're built, and that generates a current, which is electricity, and it goes into your, the wires in your house, and you're generating electricity anytime the sun shines. The stronger the sun shines, the more the electricity that's generated. So of course, at nighttime, you don't get any electricity out of the panels. Is that a simple enough explanation?
That's a close primer. I had the black, just the rubber ones that water ran through. That's not what we use to generate electricity. What's the difference between just like warming water and actually building electricity for everyone?
Yeah, so you have to make the electrons somehow, and there's a process called the photovoltaic effect, which was discovered a long time ago, that when you shine sun on a certain combination of metals, it generates a current of electricity. And so you don't actually see any moving parts when you're looking at an electricity solar panel, unlike the ones that you have where you see water flowing through it.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Okay, well, talk to me. You just mentioned they don't work at night. Everyone knows that. There is no solar power being generated. How do we do during the different seasons? Obviously, winter is I wouldn't call it a total down season. We do still get sunshine, but does solar hang in there during wintertime?
Yeah, and anytime the sun is shining, even when it's behind clouds, you're going to generate some electricity from these panels. Obviously, you can sense when the sun is stronger and when it's weaker. In the summertime, you get sunburned much more easily than you do in the wintertime. But you're still generating electricity even in the wintertime. You'll see if you look over the course of a year how much electricity gets generated each month. You'll see that it peaks in sort of July timeframe, and then it'll bottom out around December. But you're still making electricity all the time when the sun is shining.
Well, tell me about this. I always wonder how can we store that? Like, do you have to send it? You said you're sending your electricity back to the grid. Could you get a big battery at your house and store your own battery power and keep it stored and get off the grid?
You could do that. The economics of battery storage today for that type of arrangement are not great. It's pretty expensive to put a big battery in, and you would need a pretty big battery in order to be able to have the power that you need when when the sun's not shining. But technically you can do that, and there are people who have done that.
Okay, they tell me that about EVs, like electronic vehicles, the Tesla, the Leaf, that is still the big problem with those. But they say they're getting better. Most everything I read. Are we getting better on the full home battery as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially the same technology as in an electric vehicle. The batteries are, so any improvements that get made in terms of cost reductions and performance improvements, those will all translate into other applications like in-home storage. But it's still the fact that you have to store so much electricity because of when the sun isn't shining, that makes the battery much bigger than you might imagine a battery for a car. And so that it just gets more expensive as a result of that.
Okay, so how many panels would I have to have on my house to make it worth my time?
Well, actually, any amount of panels would probably be worth your time right now, especially because there's now a federal law that gives you a big rebate on any solar panel that you purchase. It's something like a 30% tax credit that you get.
Okay, well, let's say I've got a house that's about 4,000 square feet. How much of my roof would I have to cover?
So it's going to depend on what kind of roof you have, what the orientation is.
Mine faces south. Half my house
Okay.
faces south, half faces north. It's
Okay, so if the roof is facing south and is tilted at a bit of an angle, that's a perfect arrangement for where to put the solar panels.
Awesome.
I couldn't tell you exactly how much of your roof you would cover, but in my case, again, I think my house is like 2,600 square feet, not as luxurious as yours, and I'm probably using a third of my roof surface.
Okay.
And it's not even a very optimally oriented roof.
Wow.
So
the panels are doing well now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the cost for these things are coming down, which is why people are starting to really use them a lot. And again, there's a tax incentive to encourage people to do that as well.
Okay. So how much is, one of the questions they want me to ask is how much energy is really generated by solar power? And I don't mean just in Jersey. I mean like nationwide. How are we doing?
Yeah. So I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I think it's as a fraction of the total amount of electricity generation. It's still pretty small. It might be 5%.
Okay, that's good.
And so we're getting there, but it's got a ways to go.
Do you know the breakouts on those? Like how much is still coal power plant driven? How much is water, hydro? How much is wind? Do you know?
Yeah,
the breakouts on that?
I have, again, these are rough numbers. I think coal is still on the order of 30, maybe a third of our electricity. Natural gas is probably 40% of our electricity. And then nuclear is probably 10%. And the last 15% is going to be hydro, wind, and solar.
All right. Well, one last question. We're running out of time. I'm running tight. But I want you to tell me a little bit more about your Net Zero America project.
Yeah, we did a big study. It came out a little over a year ago, where we looked at how much solar and other energy forms we would need to for the country as a whole to get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And greenhouse gas emissions are what is creating the climate change problem. And if we can eliminate, there are ways to get rid of those. And we did a big modeling study to see how we could do that. And in terms of solar and wind, the bottom line was we would likely need to expand our amount of wind and solar by about 10 to 15 fold from what it is today. And we have the ability to do that cost effectively. So that was one of the big conclusions from our study. But I would encourage folks to go to a website that we set up called netzeroamerica.princeton.edu, and they can take a look at all the fancy graphics and things that we put together there to try to communicate what we did.
All right. Eric Larson from Princeton University explaining solar power on Talk to Tom. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate your time, buddy.
My pleasure.
Hey, if you have a question you'd like to get answered here on Talk to Tom, just go to clickorlando.com/talk to Tom. We'd love to get your question. I'll throw it on the air and try to answer it right here and stream it anytime on News 6 Plus. And while you're there, also check out Florida's Fourth Estate.
You know you have trouble when your son in college is nicknamed as D-Mo Swag. And you know there's marijuana going on when you hear that.
Riff on this.
Probably the worst shift you could get in radio, and I treated that thing like gold, and it was only 4 hours, and I loved it, and eventually, Sunday night came into Saturday, Sunday, then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I remember getting a phone call and saying, "Hey, we'd like to push you up, and we want to give you a job, a full-time job."
And live cams. Hundreds of people sit down to enjoy the beach from home, overlook the city beautiful, or watch the cruise ships come in. It's all available free on News 6 Plus. Just download the app on your TV and start watching today.